There we go. Okay, so welcome to Egyptian Magic, Part 6, Ancient Egyptian Magic. And in the last class, I was talking about the Corpus Hermeticum, which is a sacred text. So before we move on, I do want to do a ritual tonight, but I do also want to get into this book, a sacred book. And I am trying to find where you could get a copy of this. So hopefully I'll be able to send you a link on where you can actually find the book. So before we begin, this ancient book is actually the foundation of the Hermetic tradition. And the authors of this book are unknown, but they were written in Egypt sometime before the end of the 3rd century. And they became a substantial literature that attributes to the Hellenistic fusion of the Greek god Hermes and the Egyptian god Thoth or To. And this writing actually came out of the same religious philosophical writings that produced Neoplatonism and Christianity. And the collection of the teachings were lumped together under the label Gnosticism. And so this actually has roots in Platonic thought of the older traditions of the Hellenized East. And what I love about this is that there are obvious connections and common themes that link all of these traditions together. So we have the Hellenistic goddess period, we have all of the magic of the Egyptian gods, the Greek gods, and moving on into modern Christianity. So there was a lot of spirituality and major questions at the time. So this book, which was known as a treatise, okay, was collected into a single volume in the Byzantine times. And a copy of this volume survived to come into the hands of Lorenzo de Medicis, or I think that's it, agents in the 15th century. And Marsilio Ficino, well, he was the head of the Florentine Academy, and he was the one that had the tasks in translating the dialogues of Plato in order to put the Corpus Hermeticum into Latin first. And this translation came in print in 1463. And it was reprinted at least 22 times over the next century. So the treatise was divided up into several groups, okay? There was the first, which was known as the Pomandres, and the account of revelation that was given to Hermes as being the man shepherd, which was the expression of the universal mind, okay? And then the next 8, so chapters 2 to 9, was the general sermons, they were called. And remember, this is Egyptian as well as coming from Egyptian ancient magic. And these dialogues or these lectures were basic points of the Hermetic philosophy. And there were keys. And the key was in chapter 10. And the 10 was a summary of the general sermons. And after this was set into 4 categories, and they were known as tractates, okay? And that was Mind unto Hermes. And it was about the common mind, the secret sermon on the mountain. Now, think about this before I move on, because you have the secret sermon on the mountain, which also relates to the Hermit card. And then you have the 10, which is the key, the mind into, or the mastery of the common mind. Okay. So remember, a lot of the mysticism and the symbology that we use in tarot is connected to this. So the Sermon on the Mountain and the letter of Hermes in chapter 11 to 14 touches on the more mystical aspects of Hermetism. And this collection is rounded off by the definitions unto King Amun. Okay. So this is all can be composed into 3 fragments of sacred work. So I want to go into it a little bit just so that you can experience the sacred text that we can use. Okay. So the first aspect was the perfect sermon, and the perfect sermon, which was called, what was it called? I can't say it. It was called Asclepius, Asclepius. And this sermon actually reached into the Renaissance as well. But when it was translated into Latin in ancient times, then it became a masterpiece. It was known as the Golden Ass, ASS. And it provides some of the best surviving evidence of the worship of Isis, not just in the ancient Egyptian world, but also in the Roman world. And there's quotes that's translated at length in the City of God and remains in circulation in medieval Europe, all the way up to the Renaissance. And the original version was, of course, lost. Okay, of course. And although the quotation survived, there's several ancient resources. So again, something that had to be put together. But the perfect sermon is longer than any other surviving work of ancient Hermetic philosophy. And the topics that occur in it touch on several issues, among magical practices for the manufacture and connection of gods, and the long and gloomy prophecy of the decline of this Hermetic wisdom and the end of the world. I love it. Okay, so the significance of these writings, the Corpus Hermeticum, is a philosophical system of late medieval Europe, but the quotations from it and the Hermetic literature in the church, who were never shy on leaning of pagan sources, use it to prove a point. So let's take a look at the historical figure to the time of Moses. Okay. As a result, the Hermetic translates are borrowings from Jewish scripture. And this philosophy was seen in the residence or in the resonant, I can't talk. One sec. That's probably, Renaissance is all I was trying to say. Okay. So the evidence shows that it was influenced by both. The philosophy was wisdom tradition, and it was identified as the wisdom of the Egyptians. And so this served as a useful tool in the hands of intellectual rebels who sought to break the stranglehold of the universities at that time. Interesting. And we are still known today as rebels because we're, spiritual. So this was one of the most important weapons to another major rebellion in the old days. And the attempt to reestablish magic as a socially acceptable spiritual path in the Christian West was not easy. But another body of literature that was attributed to Hermes was made up of astrological and alchemical and magical texts. And the scholars of the Renaissance believed that Hermes was a historical person who had written all of these. And if church fathers had quoted his philosophical works with approval, and if some of these works could be shown to be holy and keeping with some definitions of Christianity, then the whole structure of magical hermeticism could be given a second chance in a Christian context. And this didn't work, of course, right? So the radical redefinition of Western Christianity that took place in the Counter-Reformation hardened and created doctrinal barriers to the point that people were being burned in the 16th century for practices that were considered evidences of devoutness in the 14th. And the attempt, although the language and the concepts of the Hermetic tractates were central to much of the post-medieval magic in the West. So it's pretty interesting that the translation of the Corpus Hermeticum and the Perfect Sermon was originally published as a volume 2 in London in 1906. Like, that's not that long ago. That was volume 2, right? And Mead, okay, who was the person who published volume 2, was a close associate of Helena Blavatsky. She is one of my favorite people. And she is the founder and moving spirit of the Theosophical Society. And most of this was brought under Theosophical spirituality. And the result of this has to be blacklisted in academic circles. So all of a sudden, this became the occult. Okay. So I want to move into a couple of the chapters. Okay. So before I move on, am I missing anything? So you will want to, if you are into this stuff, you will want to check this out because it is an amazing scripture. It's been borrowed from different cultures and used, and you can really connect. It's known as a pathway. So it shows you the great way, the way that we can use our ambitions to move forward. It's a path of manifestation. And it was used for taking. And it was actually said ta'en, which means taken. And this is something that people can practice and manifest. So let me give you a little example of something. I wonder where I can, let me see, where can I find that? There we go. I want to get to something interesting and good. So when you take a look at the perfect sermon, which is chapter 1, okay, what that represents is connecting to the divine, okay? And it was about, what it says is, God hath brought thee unto us that thou mayest hear a godly sermon, a sermon such as well may seem of all the previous ones we've ever uttered, or with we have been inspired by the divine, more godly than the pity of ordinary faith. And if thou, eye of intellect, shall see this word, thou shalt in my whole mind be filled quite full of all things good. And in that indeed, the many be the good, and not the one, in which are all indeed the difference. Between the two is found in their agreement. All is of one, or one is all. So closely bound is each to other, that neither can be parted from its mate. But with this diligent attention shalt thou learn out of the sermon that shall follow this. But do thou go forth a moment and call in the one who is here. And when he has come in, propose that Ammon too should be allowed to come. There is no cause why Ammon should be kept away from us. For we remember how we have ourselves set down in writing many things to his address. And though unto a son most dear and most beloved of physics, many things, of ethics too, as many as could be. If it is, however, in thy name, I will inscribe this treatise, but call, I prithee, no one else but Ammon, lest the most sermon on so great theme be spoilt by the admission of the multitude. I think that's pretty deep. And then it carries on, for it is the mark of the unpoised mind to publish the knowledge of the crowd, a brimminger with the full greatness of divinity, divinity. And when Ammon too had come within the holy place, and when the sacred group of 4 was now complete, and with God's goodly presence to them, sunk in fit silence, their souls and minds on Hermes' lips, this love divine began to speak. And so that whole first section does have to do with the merging of ourself and to the one, the Amun, right? Amun Ra. Let's go into, and there's a mystery behind that, okay? Let me see if a different one that might be neat. Okay, let's do the second one, the perfect sermon, okay? So we're going to do this one and then we're going to do a ritual. So there's 12 chapters of the sacred texts in the Corpus Hermeticum. And it is something I would urge you, if you like ancient magic and if you want to tap into ancient powers, I would tell you to do this. Do the whole sacred text and take your time. Practice one of each of the 12 until you actually have connected to it. And in the ancient days, they would do these sermons and they would do it until they connected to it before they moved on to the next one. Okay, so let's do the second one so that you can see. And of course, you can carry on with all of the different chapters as well. And I'll talk a little bit about that too, because we're not going to do the whole thing, but I like to just kind of give you a little bit of a description of each one. So the second one is the soul of every man. Okay, this represents the soul of every man. The soul of every man is deathless, yet not all in like fashion, but some in one way or one time, some in another. I love that. I mean, when you think about that alone and the deathless of the spirit world, right? Not all are in like fashion, but some in one way or one time or in another. So it's talking about the spiritual dimensions. And, you know, the spirit world has many dimensions. You know, many people don't realize that we can be guiding ourselves because we traveled down our DNA path, we're reborn, right? And sometimes, you know, you can be your own guide from another time in another life. And you have to think about the negative spirits, right? They're not all just like moving around. There is evolvement and change. Every blade of grass is a spirit, right? So there's a lot of spiritual power. And there's a lot of, we are all some kind of spirit. We're not, we all look human here, but in the spirit world, we do not look the same. And I find that interesting. But the soul of every man is deathless, yet not in like fashion, but some in one way or one time, some in another. And then, O thrice greatest one, each soul of one and the same quantity, how quickly hast thou fallen from reason's true sobriety? Did not I say that all is one and one is all? Inasmuch as all things have been in the Creator before they were created, nor is he called unfitly all, in that his members are the all. Therefore, in all this argument, See that thou keep in mind him who is one, all, or who himself is maker of the all. And 2, all things descend from heaven to earth, to water and to air. 'Tis fire alone, in that it is born upwards. Fire is given life. That which is carried downward is subservient to fire. Further, whatever does descend from above begetteth, that floweth upwards, nourisheth. 'Tis earth alone, in that it resteth on itself, that is the receiver of all things, and also the restorer of all genera that it receives. And this whole, therefore, as thou remembered, in that it is of all, in other words, all things embraced by nature under soul and world, are in perpetual flux, so varied by the multiform equality of all their forms, that countless kinds of well-distinguished qualities may be discerned. And yet this bond of union, that all should be seen as one and from one all. I love that. When I read stuff like that, it's always like, oh, you feel like you get elevated and you always get like something out of it. I don't know. I just find that so interesting. And let's go into the third, okay, of the perfect sermon, okay, because I love the elements. So the first one is that then, from which the whole cosmos is formed, consisteth of 4 elements: fire, water, air, and earth. Cosmos itself is one, its soul is one, and God is one. Now lend to me the whole of thee, all that thou canst in mind, all that thou skillest can penetrate, for that the reason of divinity may not be known except by an intention of the senses like to it. So we're talking about the elements and the intention, right? The intention papers that we use. And like it's likest to the torrent's flood, down dashing headlong from above, with all devouring tide and motion, so that it comes about that by the swiftness of its speed, it is too quick for our attention, not only for the hearers, but also for the very teachers. And 2, heaven then, God sensible, is the director of all bodies, bodies increasing and decreasings are ruled by the sun and the moon. But he who is the ruler of the heaven and of its soul as well, and of all things within the cosmos, he is God, who is the maker of all things. And for from all things that have been said above, over which the same God rules, there floweth forth a flood of all things streaming through the cosmos and the soul, of every class and kind, throughout the nature of all things. And the cosmos has, moreover, been prepared by God as a receptacle of forms of every kind. And forth-thinking nature by these kinds of things has extended cosmos unto heaven by means of the four elements, all to give pleasure to the eye. So I love that. So that goes into the elements in the cosmos, and you can sense how manifestation can take place and the view of how they saw things. And when you get into the fourth chapter is all about independence. It's all about our genius and calling our part of our genius forward. Okay. And then you get into the fifth one. And the fifth chapter is taking that genius and creating something with it. And when we're creating something, we're working with either gods or demons or men's or other species. So it talks about the qualities and the species of what we are creating. And that in return, they believed created our own quality of class, spiritual class. So I kind of find that interesting because they did believe in higher spiritual people and ones that weren't as connected. So there was levels in spirituality, right? And there's levels in spirituality and the things that you open yourself up to. And then when you get into the sixth, it talks about our nature as if we ourself is God and having confidence in our divine self. And that is that we are now connected to the blessed station they called of the mist. So it represents our swiftness of mind and our connection to the elements. And how we put value on things, right? That the wisdom of the mind is near, and there is actually no darkness, right? That can actually penetrate the mind. So it's really interesting because it goes into the different forms of the mind, even the food we eat. So yeah, let's see. Chapter 8 of the sermon represents our senses of all men, okay? And obtaining that power and sharing the divine sense of intelligence and using that. So there's 3 different sections in that, and it's called divine similitude. And that is when we call the cosmic part of ourselves. And we become pure in mind. So yeah, go into it. The next ones go into communication with the spirits and the buildings of spirit and performance upon your will and co-creation. So it is interesting, okay? Now I want to move on to something else. I can find it. Okay. There we go. So I do want to go into a little bit more with the different gods and goddesses, and I do want to do an invocation. And that's one of the things that is important when it comes to ancient Egyptian magic and connecting to the modern day Egyptian magic. So Zep Tepi, okay, Z-E-P, and then the second word is T-E-P-I. So the ancient Egyptians were known to have employed a sacred space within their rites where the gods were invoked, and they were called upon and asked to manifest themselves. And this was done by ritual and the invocation of the first time, which was Zep Tepi, okay? And this was being able to see as an existence outside of this reality, okay? So in other words, when I can see into the spirit world, that would be what it's considered. Okay, that would be the first, the Zep Tepi. I can see into the existence of something outside of our reality. That's what clairvoyance is. So when it comes to invoking the Egyptian gods, right, we want to first call upon Isis. And we call upon Isis for boundless love. Okay, so I don't want to do the candle yet, but maybe have a pen and paper right now. And I'm just kind of going to give you an order of, let me grab my book, of how to invoke these gods. So, wow. It sounded like it broke down. I don't know if you could hear that, but there was something out there. Okay. So we want to do Isis for love. And I'm just writing this down for a ritual. And we want to do Sekhmet for protection. So Sekhmet is S-E-K-H-M-E-T for protection. And we want to summon Anubis when we're seeking to end something and begin another, so death and rebirth. Okay, and let me see. So when we combine, let's just use these three, Isis, Sekhmet, Anubis. When we combine these three together, we are creating a rite. And the invocation or the evocation of each deity will be invoked. So when we invoke the Egyptian gods, we are inviting them to begin a soul level transformation. So whenever we invoke any type of god or power, we are inviting a soul level transformation. So make sure you write soul level transformation. Okay. And when we experience the soul level transformation, it awakens our own strength, power, and divinity. Okay. So the soul level transformation is our awakening. Now, if you don't feel a thing, maybe you call upon Isis and you feel nothing. It doesn't matter. Okay. Saying Isis 3 times invokes her. Okay. And so this magic and connecting to these spirits are spiritual, but they're also practical. And they're there to help us to advance our life. So spirits don't want to just come around and sit by us. When we invoke spirit, we're invoking them for a certain power. They want to know our bidding and then they want to leave. because they're in an ever flowing state. They never stop flowing, right? And they actually don't stand like us, right? They don't have two legs and stand. They're constantly in a flow. And so we use this to advance ourselves, but we're also able to use this stuff as a valuable learning tool, not just for ourselves, but for those we are invoking with, or that we want to share our knowledge or our abilities with. Our abilities come with the power and practice of invoking, whether we're invoking guidance from spirits or spiritual ritual magic. So anything that you are invoking or connecting to and it works, it's always going to work. If you did a money spell and it worked, you can now do that money spell and it will work every time. And sometimes it'll be the same amount of money every time. So make sure make sure you put in how much money you want, right? Or you could just get the same amount all the time. So magic is about beginning and practicing invocation. And so when we call on gods and goddesses and we're working with our ritual invocations, there is that time in ritual where you feel like you don't invoke the gods. And sometimes before you can invoke a god, you must know what it is that you're invoking. So if we're invoking something and you don't feel the power, well, what are you invoking that energy for? I invoke love. Well, love has millions of different forms. So if you're just invoking love, you may not be invoking the true love that you want to invoke. Do you know what I mean? So you do have to invoke the gods as well as know what it is you're invoking. You can do a money magic. I call in money. You might just get $5. So you want to be very specific. And the more you desire, the more magical your invocation will be, because spirit works outside of needs. If you need something, you are not going to be heightened enough to receive the manifestation or the connection to the world spirits that are there to help you. And that's why you have to go past the needs and into the desires. As soon as you go past the need and into the desire, oh, I need $5,000 for this, but I'd really like 8. That would be sweet. You're all of a sudden got better energy than asking for the 5. So this book and working with these Egyptian gods will teach you how to invoke. And you'll learn the meaning and the purpose behind each invocation you do. So I love it because it greatly enhances and it enriches my life as I'm working on creating the life and the success that I want. But when you're working with energies of different Egyptian gods, it can be powerful, especially if you start working with one and you're building momentum and connection with that god or goddess. It can be very enlightening. But you can also be called upon the gods, right? Like the other day for me, I know that Anubis was calling me because I saw him in a reflection. Then all of a sudden I see a statue of him and I'm like, oh my God, I need that statue, right? So when we see these things, they are messages for us, so that I know I'm in a death and rebirth place, and I totally feel that. That's why I need a break, okay? And so when we're working with these different Egyptian gods, it could be very powerful and very enlightening, and it can restore our sense of calm. It can restore our balance, our harmony within. And there are many ways we can work with these gods. And there's many reasons to do so. So say you're faced with an upcoming event in your life that you would like to have some kind of support and encouragement and connect to a powerful God that can help bring these elements to your aid in your situation. Well, the goddess Bastet can possess the qualities that you want. depending on your circumstancing. But invoking them can help channel the healing process and the energy you need, whatever connection it is that you need to make. Now, if you need to make a connection and it's more positive than what you need right now, then it is considered a healing magic, right? Anything that helps you grow and elevate is healing. So when I'm doing money magic, I'm doing healing magic for my money, right? So whatever connection we make, we may find that there is an association in itself that is healing and empowering. Well, why are you calling in that money that you need? Right? Well, it's going to heal my situation, but I want an extra 3,000 because it will bring me the empowerment and the freedom and the relaxation I need. So sometimes there's situations where maybe we're lost or we're giving way too much power to someone or something. Then we can invoke particular gods that can help us connect us to our inner forces. And it establishes boundaries, but it also restores our energy. So by the act of invoking, we are communicating with the gods and the goddesses, but we're using words, we're using thoughts, we're using feelings, and we're open to receive messages because we're sending that out. And so through invocation, we're also attempting to reveal how an ancient Egyptian god could interact, right? Using an ancient Egyptian language or one of their rituals. We can summon or call up the god through the use of speech, through the use of symbolism, right? Through the rituals that we talked about in this class. And why? Why an Egyptian god would we use? Well, because the Egyptians claimed that the gods or Neteru gave their language to them directly from the spirit world. So the invocations that we were doing in the third class, right, has the language of the ancient Egyptian. And those roots shared with our spirit is believed will invoke that spiritual power. So now we already know that sound has the power to break glass, and sound also has the power to pulverize rock. But sound is also used to break up kidney stones within the body without the need of surgery. And sound can make us feel happy. It can make us feel sad. It can make us feel sick. So the power of sound is undeniable. And we know that every matter of the universe resonates with vibration. So when and why wouldn't we use it? Why wouldn't it be possible that the universe we know is created by sound, in which it's the most basic definition is just a vibration? And it is our hope that our future generations or the scientists discover that sounds are powers in their own right. Now, according to the ancient Egyptian mystical rites in the Hebet and Ba, which we spoke about in the last class, Egyptian divinity really speaks the Egyptian tongue that creates currencies by listening to their language. So there has been study on this, and I believe it was a Dr. Welch, Jerry Welch, who actually scientifically was able to monitor the sounds and the utterances that were vibrationally spoken. So the word nutter, right, or netter, and its meaning. And when the term gods is used regarding the ancient Egyptian language or religion, it is a misrepresentation of their term Niteru. The Egyptians gave the name Neter to the great and supreme power, the one God. And that made the earth, the heavens, the sea, the sky, the men, the women, the animal, the birds, the creeping things. All that is and all that shall be. And they felt that to know this one God was to know the many faces and the qualities of the entity. And the more that they learned of these faces, the closer they got to the divine origin. And that this one God was self-produced. It was independent, it was invisible, it was eternal, it was almighty and immortal. And although this one God was never representation or represented, the functions and the attributes of his domain were represented in the many forms of the Neteru. That means the difference between the conceptions of Neteru and the one supreme God and the Neteru and the gods is best shown by the appeal to Egyptian texts in the pyramids. And in the pyramid of Unas, it is said to the deceased, "Thou existed at the side of God. An ka'ar kes neter." And so the stories and gods were essential to explain events and situations that could not otherwise be explained, or to give divine right to someone or something. New gods were encountered as the Egyptians traded with new cultures. And by combining two or more gods or Neteru together, they found a better match for the needs at that time. And this is not unusual. One only has to look at the changes Christianity has gone through in 2/3 of that time. It is a normal part of history that people change, and so do their spiritual needs. So the Egyptians simply adapted their Neteru to best fit the needs as they saw them. And understanding this will help you retain your focus on the Neteru and not on the name used. So in ancient Egypt, the priests of the temples performed daily invocational rites to the statues of the Neteru. And these rituals were elaborate. They were held in the morning, and then they were held at noon, and then they had them at night. And in the morning, the ritual was designed to awaken the Neter, to feed it, to bath it, to clothe it. While the evening ritual was designed to put the Neter to bed. Clothes, food, drink, and incense were all parts of the invocational rite. And each rite was actually several hours long. And in the modern times, we don't have that time to complete these huge daily rituals. I mean, I personally have my morning ritual. I like to rise and see what comes, and it is a spiritual thing for me. And I like to tone it down in the evening. But they're not like they were in the ancient times, right? And we would never leave the temple or the shrine. Their developed rites were instilled in the essence of the rituals of the temple. And so that they would honor the gods in a similar way as the ancient Egyptians. The experience, they developed a relationship with the Neter while still maintaining their daily rites and their daily routines. So practically all invocational rites were used as a basic principle that are in fact truths in themselves, principles that work upon their intended subjects. And though you may not yourself be able to hear or see or sense any of what I'm saying or what they were doing, many traditions of magic today still use these rites. Even the Kabbalah used this. And the Kabbalah or magic actually means receiving. So most having been arrived at independent cultures from different continents and histories, a lot of these principles should be accepted and simply working methodologies, but they are something to believe or believe in. And by all invocations, a sacred space occurs. And that can be metaphysically drawn or created by the practitioner of the occasion. And this has to do with the ability to raise or to banish, to release the powers, and to go on performing the work of the rite requested. Okay. So the ancient Egyptians were known to have employed a sacred space within their rites, where the gods were invoked. They were called upon and asked to manifest themselves. And this was done through a ritual of Zep Tepi, okay, which represented and was seen as the existence outside of our reality. And in later times, the four deities or Netaru that represented the equivalent of the four quarters that we talked about last class, right? East, Tuametev, Amset South, Kebsenuv West, and Happy North were invoked to guard a sacred space. And later on, influential occultists and mystics and ceremonial magicians and members of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn all state that to invoke is to call in, just as to evoke is to call forth. Okay, so invoke, call in. When we do the charge of the goddess, we are invoking her. We are calling her into our being. When we are doing calling in angels to help us, we are evoking them. We are calling them forth. We're not asking them to jump into our being and to what is it called? Possess us. Okay. And so these essential differences between the two branches of magic, invocation and evocation. And invocation is the macrocosm flood of the consciousness. And in evocation, the magician is having become the macrocosm, creating a microcosm. You might have to listen to that again. Okay. So the universe is the macrocosm, and the body is the microcosm. So the top of the head corresponds to the top of the universe, the North Star, and ascension macrocosmically through the heavens, which is often numbered as 7. Okay, remember the symbol 7 is the symbol to the highest heaven. So whenever you see 7s, that's ancient. The highest heaven has corresponded to ascension microcosmically. And that is the power of the fire snake, the Kundalini, the primal source or power that usually lies dormant in the non-initiate. So when we do our initiations, first degree, second degree, or initiation as a witch, initiation as a priestess, or whatever tradition and initiations lie, that is what we're doing. Okay. So there was a treaty, and I'm trying to think of what that was. And it had to do with the mysteries of Egypt. Theurgia, Theurgia. So Theurgia, or On the Mysteries of Egypt, it was called. And this was a treatise that was written by an old philosopher, Lamlicus. And listen to this. It is through evoking higher spiritual powers by means of rites of supernatural magic that humans come to true realization of what they are in essence: eternal spiritual entities. And that's huge, because all basis of magic, whether it's Wicca or mystic magic, natural magic, or Egyptian magic, as above, so below, is all about that. The supernatural magic that we come to realize. And it is through whatever we choose to manifest in our life, there is magic that can help perform it. And like when I take a look at my life, and I take a look at when I'm doing readings or when I'm doing magic or when I'm manifesting the things in my life, I know for a fact that it is spiritual power that's doing it with me. Like, I don't take any credit except for the fact that I listen. I ask questions and I trust the good guidance that comes to me. And so when we create and connect to the two primary methods of invocation, the first being the traditional Western method that is devotional, and the second being the Egyptian magic, where the personality of the God form is awakened by the invoker, right? We learn to recognize the connection and not create it, because the connection is always there. We're just unaware of it most of the time. And day-to-day issues and the concerns that distract us from feeling the connection really doesn't matter. Don't worry if nothing seems to happen. Mastering invocation takes time and practice, and everyone has the ability. And once you get to the point where you do recognize a connection to the gods or the energy or the spirits that you are trying to connect with, then your mind will perfectly become still and open to the divine. So call out to a god, call out to a goddess that you wish to invoke, and feel a shift in the connection when he or she answers, right? And when you invoke a god or goddess, you are invoking a part of yourself. You are communicating with that part of you that is divine. And that part of you that is divine is connected to all of the divine things, to all of divinity. So invoking with the Egyptian gods is only the tip of the pyramid, because there's so much more that can surface. There's rituals and invocations that are purely ceremonial with no intent of reaching out to a god, but our work is creating the elegant way to approach an Egyptian god or goddess. And it's to the point that when we are truthful in what we want, we have nothing that's being held back. And many invocations have been written cosmetically perfect, offering us only the chosen words. And when we speak those chosen words, we get in touch with the chosen God. So I always like to use invocations of the old days. I don't like using modern day invocations that, maybe Samantha wrote in 2020. I like working with the real deal before this modern day stuff. If it's before 1800s, I'm not really interested in it myself. I like the old stuff. And so when we attempt to understand the aims of magic and invocation, we learn to reconstruct our creative process, and things become more possible. And our ability to succeed becomes more possible, and the ability to succeed in invocation becomes more. So we have to have the idea that when we perform invocations to these gods and goddesses, even if we're trying, to accept that these have taken place. Don't question it. Just do it and move on. If you don't feel anything in 3 days, do it again and move on, right? And as you whenever you utter the names of the Neter, any god or goddess, invoking them into your space, be mindful that you are contributing to an ever rippling flow that will serve as a free flowing river for others. So we are connecting to powerful undercurrents of Egyptian magic, and that changes things forever. So venture and feel excited about going into this hidden realm where true Gnostics and true healing can be found by invoking certain realms and gods and Egyptian magical power. And as you do, you'll actually connect to other dimensions and receive messages from spirit, but you'll also become one with your divine self. And I love that. So let us go into okay, I'm going to do invoking goddess with you. Now, I wonder if I sent you guys this. I know I do it in the mystic class, the Isis, and you look at it and it moves together. I'm not sure. Let me just get a picture here. I'm going to pull it up on my thing and make sure I have it sent to you. Okay. So I hope you have a candle. Grab your candles. And I'm going to turn this down, take another sip. Okay. Where's my candle? There we go. And I got the lighter. Okay, so this invocation of Isis, I'm going to read it to you. And a lot of times this was done with frankincense as an incense. And you can do the incense or put it on charcoal, as well as a drink. Traditionally, they would do wine or beer or fruit juice or water. And you want 2 candles for sure. Now, back then they had candles everywhere. And some people would use 2 white candles. Some people would use a white candle and a red candle. So you can use any color you want. And a statue or a picture of the Neter. Okay. And another thing that I like to use for to represent the Neter is a mirror or a magic mirror. I like to have those on my altar to represent the Neter. And in the ancient times, this was done in a white robe, and they would tie a red cord around the waist. And this would represent and give Isis respect. So we are invoking Isis. And the Neter we will be invoking, you would also anoint your wrists, your temples, and your throat with frankincense oil if you have it. So let's hold our candle. Now there is a hieroglyph that I'm going to send with you with this ritual. And what you want to do is when you are doing the ritual, you look at all three images. And you're going to see an image of Isis, a rising sun, and her throne. And what you do is you look at them and until they all combine into one picture. So Isis will move onto her throne. So the hieroglyph will move and change into one. So you always want to sit comfortably when you're doing this ritual, upright in a chair. And the reason why the chair is important is because the chair represents the throne. And you're supposed to breathe. So you want to breathe 4 to 6 times through your mouth. So I'm going to do that. Now repeat after me. I breathe the sweet breath which comes forth from my mouth. I behold the beauty every day. It is my desire that I may be rejuvenated with life through love of thee. Give me thy hands, holding thy spirit, that I may receive it and I may live by it. Call unto thy name unto eternity, and it shall never fail. Now pause. And you want to just breathe and focus on your candle. Take note on if you feel it warm, breathing, pulsing. Every rhythmic is connecting to element, and the elements are combining to form a powerful connection. Breathe through your mouth 3 times and put the candle in your right hand. Now say after me, hail to thee, O Isis. Hail the mother of Horus. I come as a pilgrim on your path. Bless me, Majesty. Allow me to see through the blue haze that surrounds you. Bestow me the gift of smell. Fill my nostrils with the aromas of lotus, rose, and orange. And breathe through your nose. I drink in this fragrance and am dizzy with delight. And if you actually breathed in and got a little dizzy, then that is a good sign. I behold thy heavenly presence as you appear before me. Thou who sits upon the throne of royal purple. Hail to thee, O Isis. Hail, great goddess, who appears before me. I tremble at your presence. I feel my robe gently moving in the air as a nekbet The vulture goddess slowly flaps her wings above me. Isis, allow me to look upon you, O gracious one. The liquid blue of your rimmed eyes survey me. Your lips smile upon me, and your face shines like 1,000 moons. Your beautiful face radiates love for me. You inspire comfort, communion, and bring harmony. My fears fall away this very instant. Hail to thee, Horus. Hail to thee, O child of the goddess. I behold you as you nestle against your mother's left knee. I behold you, O golden-skinned child, thou who wears the side lock of youth. With just the pressure of your tiny right toe, you control a red serpent. I regard the contented smile on your royal lips. Is it the knowledge you control, or the power you have over the snake? Or that ye may impart the knowledge of this power to me? Now we gotta say something Egyptian. Ar ekwa urseta. A ehe ha tetru en iset. Nak sheves neseni tapama ete. I have entered into the sacred mysteries, and standing behind the throne of the day of Isis, I drive back disaster, sail forth the right and truth. Great Isis, I pray thee, speak to me of myself, so that I will learn more of thee. Open my eyes, open my ears, so that I can hear your sacred voice. And I want you to light your candle and watch the flame. I am she who triumphed over death to bring my beloved husband back to life. I am mistress of the sun and daughter of the Lord gods. I am wife of a king and carried the young god within me to the sacred place and gave birth to him. I am Isis, great mother of the gods and queen of the Mamisi. Look upon me as I truly am, unfettered by your hopes and fantasies. I have lingered in the shadows, watching you shape and unshape me, age after age, an empty image not worthy of my name. I am power. I am love. I am eternity. Remember this, my child. Through me shall you find the greater mysteries of life. I speak of many things that are known and unknown. My breath to your breath, my heart to your heart. Take up the goblet and drink heartedly the elixir of life. Feel the serpent of the knowledge as it entwines itself around your arm. So at this point, you just want to think Isis and think about the things you want her to help you with right now. What do you want her to help you build? What do you want her to foster in your relationships with the universe or with the spirit? This is the important part in the ritual where you want to open your heart to her. So just think about the things for a moment. And if you do have a drink with you, you can grab it. And if you don't, it's okay. But traditionally, you would take the drink and you would say, Great Goddess Isis, in perfect love and perfect trust, I drink. And as I drink, I feel the energy surge through me. I see the great land of Kemet roll out before me. Let this serve as a pathway to open my psyche. Let my soul be stirred. And I'm going to take a sip. And then if you do have incense going, or in the ritual, if you have your incense, you would want to inhale it. Or you can use the fire or smoke of your candle. Just waft your candle to you. So I'm going like this until I can like feel it and maybe smell it. And as you do, I inhale the incense or smoke. I inhale the very breath of Isis, who has made it holy by her presence. May the wave of pure harmony wash over me. I listen to my inner voice as it says, in the essence of perfection, of all good, are comprehended in the goddess. And if I adhere to a more excellent nature, I will always obtain a union with her. The contemplation of truth and the possession of intellect. For a knowledge of all gods is accompanied with a conversion to and knowledge of myself. And then they would stand silently and think about what they said and see if anything would come to you, either a sentence, a thought, a symbol. And they would think about the privilege of the things they were able to see in the ceremony or experience, or the things that would pop in their mind while it was happening. And then they would close the shrine after they've reflected. They would blow out their candles. So now, even though we just lit them, we want to blow out our candle. And in magic, we never ever blow, but in this ritual, we blow. So blow it out. And I always take note on where the smoke goes. So mine did a banishing. Mine went counterclockwise. And then if it goes clockwise, it was a receiving. And then we want to close our eyes for a moment. They would bow in the temple, and then open your eyes and say, I shall always remember that all deities are true and valid emanations of the Supreme One, and will not allow myself to become so obsessed with the one aspect that I denigrate others, for this is not true love of deity. And that is it. And that is the invocation to Isis. That's a true ritual. So I want you to, I'm trying to think what I'll do. I think I can just like take a snapshot of this and then I'll put it in the little workbook so that you can try it. And this is also something fun to do with other people. So you'll have a little ceremony ritual to Isis. Every woman, I think, every single woman should invoke her for sure. Now let me see if I'm missing anything else. And did you feel anything? Did you heat up? Did you cool down? What was your experience? You need to do a money spell. Okay, let's do it. I got one right here. Let's do an Egyptian money spell. So I know that you blew out your candle, but let me see. Where can I find? Just want to see where I can find. I know I just saw one in my stuff. Let me see. Come on. I want to do an Egyptian money spell. Let me see what comes up for me. Okay, there's that one. I just had it, so I just need to see where I had it. Okay. Let's see. Now, one sec. I was going to say, was it? Maybe it wasn't this. Okay, so here is an old, it is the water one. Okay, perfect. Here's a good, this one's really good to try. This is a water, Egyptian water magic. And remember, when it came to Egyptian magic, like nowadays people see it and they find it's like so intimidating and is part of the occult. But back then, everything that we discussed was actually considered white magic, like it was considered sacred and holy. And doing money magic was also something that was considered sacred and holy. So I do want to share with you this one to try. So this is considered an Egyptian money magic. And money spells in ancient Egypt were very popular. So let me see. how did we do this one? So this one, you do want to have a little bowl filled with water. And of course, you just want it sitting on a table. And this, I'm going to give you an ancient Egyptian money mantra. And you do want to hold the bowl and look at the water. And you want to say this mantra for a few minutes. Okay, so for me, I would do it until I feel like warmth around my hands and I know it went into the water. Or sometimes I'll touch the water with my right hand and see if I can feel any stickiness or thickness to it. And then I know, okay? So you will get a water bowl. You can put some change in it if you want, like some coins. You can also put the amount of money you want on a piece of paper and put it underneath the bowl, not in it. You can use water or you can use money crystals. You can also use a candle and have a money candle burning while you're doing this. So grab a bowl of water, hold on to it with both hands, and you want to say, and this is so hard for me to say, Ralagba. So it is RALAGBA. Okay. Actually, I'm going to write this down. I want you to write this down with me and then you can say it. So the first word is Ralagba. So RALAGBA. The second word is chakra. So not chakra, but SHAKRA, chakra. And then the next one is takarna. So TAKARNA. And then the fourth word is Shabnoza. SHABNOZA. So what you want to do is say those four words. Ralagba, chakra, takarna, shabnoza. Ralagba, chakra, takarna, shabnoza. Ralagba, chakra, takarna, shabnoza. And if you feel like you kind of messed up, say it until you can do it 3 times where you feel like you did it pretty smooth. Remember, it doesn't matter if you feel like you did it or not, you are invoking it. Now, once you've charged that water, you are supposed to take that water and you want to pour it on yourself slowly. So you can pour it on your hands, your left hand and then your right hand. A lot of people would take this and they would pour it over their head in the shower. But they would traditionally pour it on themselves slowly. And then they were blessed. They were blessed. The ritual was supposed to bless you with unlimited, remember, unlimited wealth and riches. And this extremely powerful money spell was something that worked fast and something that was long lasting. You could use it forever. So remember to use a bowl of water. Traditionally, when they did this ritual in ancient times, they did it in a brass bowl. So if you have like a Tibetan brass bowl or a little brass bowl, they traditionally did it in brass. You can do it in crystal. Crystal is an activator. Copper is too. Glass you can use. Don't use plastic. Plastic will not work. Wood, I wouldn't even do. Wood is grounding. So glass, ceramic, whatever. And try it and see if it works for you. Okay. And hopefully you wrote that down. So try that one tonight and leave it out. You can even do it at your place of work or where you're making money. and leave the bowl out for 24 hours and see how the water thickens, right? That might help. And if you have thick water, then you know that you've activated that energy and cleansed it. And a lot of times I like to just check my place. I'll do the water bowl in my store, let it sit overnight, and I'll see how thick it is. And it'll let me know like it did need cleansing, right? Cleansing and activation. Now let me see if there is anything else I want to do tonight. I'm trying to think if I could think of a spirit traditional that is good for wealth. Let me see. I don't want you to miss something. I guess I should kind of go into trying to think if I did do. Let me just check something. I don't know if we did the invocation to Cyrus. That's not the one. Okay, we did do the order of the resurrection last class. Okay. Let me see if there's anything else on the Hermetica. We went through that. We went through a lot in this class. I'm like going through all of my stuff, and we actually did talk about a lot of different stuff. It's crazy. Okay. I wonder. Are you awake there, Brett?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Let me see. Paths of the Dead. Did I do anything like that? I think we did. I went through all of my stuff. Okay. Let me just make sure I'm checking one more thing. The Rite of Isis, we did. Oh yeah, with a 333. That was awesome. New moon was yesterday too. Yeah, the Rite of Isis we did yet the other day. And we did the circle. Yep. The Rite of Isis. So those things I will have in your booklet. Okay. Well, let's do some cards. And that is it. You get to go early. I don't have anything else here. We did it all. Okay, I didn't finish it all. I found something. So before we go, there's just a couple minutes, okay? So whenever we want, when should you invoke Egyptian help? Okay, I want to go through some of these with you. And some of it is if we feel like we don't have ambition, or if we feel lost, or if we feel unconnected with our relationships, family and friends, or maybe we have broken dreams that we wish we would have done, or if we feel anything that's like dead inside. So if we need anything to liven us up, we can connect to Egyptian magic, okay? And Isis and the Egyptian goddesses are actually cultivators of things that can grow. So anything that we want to grow in a location or in ourselves, anything that we can create, that we can harvest from in the future, the Egyptian goddesses will help us with. And if we need to come up with any type of ideas, or our imagination isn't helping us, we just keep getting depressed or we're fighting anxiety, Osiris is the god that we want to call to invigorate our mind and to heal it. And Osiris can also be used to release spirits and connect to the dead. So you can use this Osiris invocation that we did in the last class to resurrect anything that is close to death, even plants, right? So if you ever have a plant, if you have a plant that's not doing so well, Osiris, bless this plant, bring it life, okay? And see how it reacts. Like within 3 days, you'll see a change. Osiris is another one that can help heal depression and can bring people to a more elevated or stable mood. But you do have to do the invocation. The other thing is, let me see. So that's interesting. I feel like, where is the other thing? So that is interesting. Come on. I think the main thing is to just to realize that when you are calling these spirits in, you are creating a circle. That every invocation, every act you're doing is like a prayer. And in magic, it creates a circle and connection to specific entities that we can use to protect and to witness our ritual. And when we do the invocations, those spirits that are there to witness our ritual is also there to protect our ritual, but they do our bidding. Our voice does not create the magic. It's the spirits that are doing our bidding. So I find that interesting. And a lot of people feel like when they're doing their magic or their spells or they're connecting to spirit, it's all them, and it's not. It's basically the other way around. The stronger spiritual presence, the more you're going to get. Okay, let's do some cards then, and I'll let you go. Yeah, I don't see anything here I'm missing. I'm just flooding through my stuff. Okay. Let's pull some cards. Okay, so we did the Isis invocation tonight. So what is she doing? I'm pulling 3 cards: body, mind, and spirit. How is she influencing us? Yeah, we actually did do the invocation. So you don't have to do a thing. Of course, you can re-listen and do it again if you want, but what we did tonight already opened you up and connected you. So let's see how. What can we expect from the Isis magic? So now when I pull these cards, body, mind, and spirit, I just watch for it now. I just watch for it. It's like these are telling me what to watch for. So this is for all of us. Body is clarity. So our mind has been purified. We're going to feel more energized and better because that was so good. I needed to lay down. I was like, can't make it to class. Body, mind, financial health. So clarity, financial health, that's breakthroughs and closure. So there is a change. There is a death and a rebirth. And that kind of showed that in that ritual. I kind of felt like that. So clarity, so crystal clear vision, ask for signs, ask for information, learn how spirit is communicating with you, Isis, we want to focus on, and then focus on financial health. So what is it? And the other thing is things that are meant to, doors that are meant to close are closing this month. So let them close. Don't fight anything. Don't force anything. It looks good for us. Awesome. So I'll let you go. This video will be posted tomorrow. I'll send it out to you. And then the worksheet will probably be 2 days because it's been nuts here. And the certificate will come with a little workbook. So the workbook has the invocations with the hieroglyphs that we talked about in class 3 and 4. And so the rest of it will be the copies of the rituals that we did. So I'll put the little book together and send it to you. I'll let you go. Have a good night. Enjoy, and you're very welcome. Bye-bye.